Hello and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast with the science and the screaming to determine the best movie for any given year. This year, of course, we are doing 1973, 5 decades ago. I am your host, Greg. With me, as usually, are Ryan and Mike. How you doing, gentlemen?
So good. We just smoked a doob in the Volkswagen van we co-own and live in.
Dude, can vans really have owners?
That's
no,
so
you can't
true,
just
man.
own a van, man.
We have voted off a lot of movies so far. Have there been any painful cuts for you, gentlemen?
It really hurt when we got rid of, and then the.
Yeah. Oof,
This is
that was
what's fun
tough.
about 50 years ago. I have emotional attachment to one movie, and we already locked it in.
I think that the one that had the most, like, I'm going to be honest, gentlemen, this next round, the second round, after we're done with the first, because we're halfway through the first, is going to be really harsh. But this first round's pretty easy. I think that the most drama I've seen so far is Mike, renowned garbage lover, having to say goodbye to Templeton, his mentor.
That was hard. And it's are you guys upset that is the only time this season you're going to hear my Templeton impression?
I don't think that's
Honestly.
true, Mike.
I love trash.
No,
Right,
is that-
it's going to happen?
Is that Charles Nelson Riley? Or is that,
I always forget.
yeah.
Paul Lint?
Paul Lynn.
Those are the two, right?
Those are the
It's
two.
one of my two daddies.
I will tell you, the one that upset me for making it through was the Holy Mountain.
Mhm.
I'm going to really lean into hating the Holy Mountain because either I'm going to prove to be right or at least correct about my own appraisal of it, or I'm going to have like this moment where I come around, and if I do, I'm going to become the biggest Holy Mountain fan by the time we're done.
What I'm interested in is, let's say Mike and I love it, but one of us is going to decide right before we start recording, I'm going to pretend I hate this movie so I get all the points from Greg.
Mike
Until
famously
the
loves
end.
trash, so perhaps he would be
That's
the
true.
one.
Just
Well-
like Paul Lind, who played Templeton.
We still have a lot of battles to do, so let's get right into it. Mike, in our next matchup, we are starting with number 31 seed, and your choice, Scream, Blackula, Scream.
In case people are nutsos and jumping to the part 2 and not listening to part 1, Scream Black is Scream. Blaxploitation horror movie starring Pam Grier. Come on, what else do you need?
Well, I think probably any movie that stars Pam Grier is guaranteed to beat whatever movie it goes up against. Ryan, would you agree? Number 34 is the movie Coffee.
Oh, the movie that stars Pam Grier more than
A
any
movie
other
that
movie
stars
on this
Pam
bracket?
Grier.
What?
What is Coffee like? What is it about? Tell us about Coffee, Ryan.
Coffee is amazing. Coffee is heart-wrenching. When Greg was burning through all these 73, did you get to Coffee, Greg?
I didn't because we had talked about how we would split up some of the movies, and then
Yeah.
you would watch a movie, and I'd be like, I'm going to watch that. And I was like, no, I have to do the other thing, which is watch the ones he's not watching.
It is so goofy on purpose. It's so goofy on accident. But, like, if Greg said he was going to watch it, then I was going to have to do a giant TW text of, like, hey, man, there's some crazy shit at the end that you need to prepare yourself for. Like,
Oh, wow.
And that's not something I really do. Like, I'm usually like, this is the movie, man, experience it. But
Yeah,
I was
you've
going,
like never done that, so
Yeah.
that's pretty scary.
I was going to straight up warn you about shit. So a fascinating movie. I think that it would be hard to do this year without it. Sorry, Scream, Blackula, Scream. I'm already
Mike.
voting.
Yeah, Mike, having heard all that, do you still want to stick with Scream Black of the Scream, or do you want to move on to Coffee?
Pam Grier's Pam Grier, baby. I'll go with Coffee.
It's the bigger Pam Grier movie, right, Ryan, even though it's the lower seed?
I don't know if she's even in Scream, Blackula, Scream for that much.
Yeah. Well, Coffee is moving on. Also, I just got to say it, my number 1 favorite beverage. So our next matchup, Mike, is number 15. This is not a TV show. This is actually a movie. It's called Westworld. What do you know about the movie Westworld?
So Evan Rachel Wood is not in this one.
No.
So I know that. I
Okay, there
do
you go.
know, is a Brimley in this? A Brimley
Yul
with a
Brynner
mustache
is
in
in
this?
it.
Yul Brenner, that's what I meant. Yul Brenner's in this with a mustache.
Brenner.
Michael Crichton based. He thinks theme parks are the devil and will always kill you, and I think that is in this as well.
Not just based, but directed by, right?
Oh, damn.
Oh, he's the
Bold of him.
director of this?
I want to say that. I can look it up.
wow.
Then say it.
I mean, I just watched it, so I should know. But every time a movie is starting, I'm like, pay attention
Yeah.
to these names at the beginning, and then I never do.
Editor, fuck you. and then just right to your phone. Yeah, it's written and directed by Michael Crichton.
And Daddy Brolin's in it.
Yes,
I'm out of things I know.
Looking exactly like Christian Bale. I don't know if this is a thing that people know and I'm just late to the party, but James Brolin in Westworld, if you put it on and you did not tell somebody that this was not Christian Bale, there's a chance they would be like, what's this weird retro movie with Christian Bale in it? He looks so much like him. Interesting concept. I'm not sure that the movie always lives up to like how interesting the concept is. It's definitely doing that 70s thing of like, let's let these shots breathe and like let's like really explore these environments. And I think sometimes the vibes of it might weigh it down a little bit.
It will always suck that it will most of the time always suck that we have to watch people learn how to film movies. Like we have to like sit there and watch it happen.
I do think Yul Brynner is amazing in it. Like, and I think that we have a lot of our modern depictions of like robo people, like for instance, the T-1000 from Terminator 2, I think has a lot to do with what Yul Brynner is doing in this movie.
Or when Itchy and Scratchy robots went crazy at Itchy and Scratchy Land.
Ryan, it's going up against our number 50 seed, State of Siege.
Now, here's another, I don't want to say 8-cab movie, but like a lot of conservatives thought that this movie about like a politician who gets kidnapped and then comes back was anti-American. Greg, have you seen this movie?
Okay, I just watched it. It is anti-CIA. So this leftist group that is mostly students captures several people who come from other countries, and it's set in South America, and I'm just blanking now if it's like Brazil or not. It's not Brazil because they talk about Brazil as one of the... Oh, it's Uruguay. So they're in Uruguay, and this student group gets upset that like there's all these people from other countries who come and basically teach their cops how to torture people and how to like really crack down on them. And so they capture a bunch of these people, and then it's the interplay between the group trying to find these criminals and not. Gentlemen, I've seen both of these movies very recently. Westworld was a bigger movie. State of Siege is one of the best movies we've like ever done for this show. It is so real and so interesting. It raises so many questions, and I don't think it comes down on necessarily... I mean, I think it's against interventionist torture from other countries, but beyond that, it's not like these people are totally right and these people are totally wrong. It's about deeply compromised individuals trying to do the best they can.
I just think that like if we're going on bigness, like we've sort of denied this director, this Greek director Kostas Gravis, multiple times. I think that we've said no to his movie Z, said no to his movie Missing, the Jack Lemmon like let's make an American movie. But Westworld, I think, just reigned so supreme over
so big and
history.
The show just came out, and then there was the big hullabaloo about like how it was taken off the streaming services.
And ChatGPT is probably running those robots. I think I have to go with Westworld.
What do you say, Mike? Is it because this is definitely a case of a big movie and a good movie.
And I hate the show Westworld, but I love Michael Crichton generally, and so I'm going back and forth on that. I'm going to go State of Siege, even though it sounds like a Steven Seagal movie.
Ooh, so then you're going to push it onto me.
Mostly because I love to watch Greg sweat.
That's awful. What an awful thing to do to me.
And
but, you know,
Mike,
I
how
guess...
come every time Greg sweats, he sparks a little bit? Is that weird?
I guess I'm going to have to go with Ryan's argument about how big Westworld was. We're Crichton heads on this show. It has a lot to do with where Jurassic Park comes from. And there's so many futurist movies in this season, and I think we need to get a few of them in there to show what this year was all about. Speaking of those movies, Mike, what do you know about 18 seed Soylent Green?
And I swear to God, if you spoil this for me, Mike, I'm going to freak out.
I know. I'm going to try not to then. I know Charlton Heston stars in it. I know the drama girl from Drop Dead Gorgeous, for her talent, does the monologue at the end of it, which spoils it for me, which is also the most amount of Soylent Green I've seen. I know the weird fucking nerds who think we don't need to eat from Silicon Valley named their shake company Soylent because it feels like
what
they
a
missed
weird
the point.
move, guys. What are we doing here?
And I know Ryan Plug Years that Soylent Green is people.
It's people.
Uh,
Soylent Green is people. They
did
blew it
Oprah
up and they
announce
made
it?
it Soylent Green. Ryan, do you care anything about the movie Soylent Green?
I have avoided it. Honestly, these last two, Soylent Green and Westworld, I have avoided because I've heard that they are really testing the patience of even 1973 audiences. Like, interesting premise, have some good moments, boring.
Yeah,
So, no, I haven't watched them.
There's interesting parts of Soylent Green. I think the thing that nobody talks about with this movie is the male-female relations in it. I don't know if all women in this universe are just referred to as furniture, but apartments come with a girl, and she is referred to as furniture. And when you move out, somebody else will move in, and they can either keep the furniture or not.
Wow.
And
the future the incels want.
Now, since it's the future, are all restaurants Taco Bell?
I think all restaurants are Soylent Green. And then it's going up against number 47, Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, I'm gonna ignore that mic gasp for just a second, Greg, if you'll let me.
I will.
Based on my 1973 research, if we were to give each of these a show, so 64 episodes for this season, I believe that Battle for the Planet of the Apes would absolutely, the three of us would absolutely agree, was by far the single worst movie of this entire year. This movie is allegedly garbage, and I know Mike, much like his mentor Templeton, loves trash, but this movie cannot move on.
And I don't believe it will. Mike, what do you think?
I think this is the one where they live underground, and even a 8-year-old Mike who was devouring all the Planet of the Apes movies went, kind of jumped the shark and missed the point, huh, there?
Is this when the apes sing Under the Ground?
Yes. Yeah, no, I don't care that Caesar... It's weird that this is the one that the reboots, they're like, oh, Caesar, this is the worst of the Planet of the Apes 70s, like 60s, 70s movies. And
he says that into the camera in the movie.
And that they're the one that they based the whole future reboots on, which is strange.
They blew up the franchise. They blew it all up. Yeah, so Soylent Green will be moving on. Mike, you're going to be so excited about this next one. Our number 7 seed, Robin Hood.
The sexy fox Robin Hood?
The very one. The fox that launched a million furries.
Odalita, 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 what a day.
Oh, the lolly, lolly, lolly. Yeah, that's the one.
Great song, even if I can't remember it. This is... I even though people rate it and want to fuck foxes because of it, I feel like an under-talked about Disney movie these days. But I bet it's still 1973 and pretty boring compared to other ones in an interesting way.
But in an interesting way.
I don't know. Honestly, it like, I watched this movie a lot as a kid, and I loved it, and I watched the first half of it recently, and loved it. It's got a lot of personality, and it's very interesting. It's I think a solid Disney movie. What do you think, Ryan?
I think it's whatever. I think it's poorly animated, and when it's best animated, you can see the movies that it stole from.
Yes.
Like
straight
the
up,
Jungle Book.
Yeah, ran into the other studio that was on the Disney lot and said, "Give me those cells."
Well, that's
going
how
up
Robin Hood would.
Yeah, exactly. Ryan, it's going up against number 58 seed, Cinderella Liberty.
All right, so congratulations to Robin Hood. I don't like this is another rom-com, which I think is crazy. Like, I think that we've learned throughout doing all these brackets just have so much less staying power than you think they would.
Yeah.
There's major ones, but like if you're just kind of a basic movie, I don't know if like you can last. This one is actually, fun fact, based on a book by the same writer as The Last Detail. So
that's a fun fact.
Jack Nicholson in that movie is the same character as James Caan in this movie, and from the same year. And in this one, he's given leave where he
from
doesn't
the ship, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have to come back to the ship, which is called Cinderella Liberty. You don't have everybody has to be back by midnight, but he's given Cinderella Liberty, so he doesn't have to be back. Falls in love with a prostitute. Prostitute is nominated for an Oscar, and that's why you're seeing it here.
Oh, wow, what a twist. So the prostitute actually gets nominated for an Oscar. Does that affect their relationship in a meaningful way?
Yeah, she kills him with an Oscar. Like Richard Gere in Unfaithful just hits him in the head with it.
Which do you think should move on, Ryan?
Let's do Robin Hood. Why the fuck not?
Mike, do you agree?
Yes.
Yeah, I agree too. Oh, I didn't think it was going to go this way. Woo! Robin Hood. A literal fox, ladies and gentlemen.
I believe that Prince of Thieves was a bonus episode in 91. Didn't even make the Elite 8.
One nice thing that this movie does that Prince of Thieves also borrowed is the accents make literally no sense. Like, a couple people have English accents. The troubadour that sings the whole song has a southern accent. Mm-hmm. Very interesting. I guess that helps with an animated movie. Like, you're like, it's the guy from England who had a southern accent. You know that one? Mike, in
He's
our
from
next
Essex.
matchup, number 26 seed, have you ever even heard of Ganja and Hess?
No.
Ryan, have you heard of? Do you know anything about Ganja and Hess?
I'm gonna be honest with you, Greg. I don't know if I had until Spike Lee remade it.
Oh, okay, yeah. And what do you remember what the name of his? Because he has a slightly different name for it. Do you remember what it is?
The Sweet Blood of Jesus.
Okay, yeah. I watched this today.
And is Ganja the?
No, Ganja's like a character in it. Although they also do refer to the drug as Ganja. So I'm not sure. This is very experimental. It is. I don't know that it works all the way through, but there are moments in this that are almost like documentary. Like they actually had the actors in character talk about what seems like their own lives. Very emotional. But it's like an acid movie. Like there are just like these long segues of unfocused, experimental, moody shots. But it's so compelling. It really it has something, but it's also, I think, deeply flawed. But there are moments, I'd say 2 or 3 moments in the movie that are like as real, as interesting, and as compelling as anything we've done on the show so far.
But right up Spike Lee Boulevard too is that I feel like this is one of the directors who's like sort of going after Romero's thing of like they're not just monsters, right? Like we could say something, right? And
I
this
mean,
is
there's
like,
so little about them.
A lot of it is about how like fitting in and becoming like part of the society, and what does that say about black culture and blah blah blah.
Yeah, like it's very, very little about how they're vampires. Like so little actually, and it's more like about imagine if you woke up and you were a vampire, what would you do? And so like he makes
Jerk
a woman
off.
a vampire, and she wakes up the next day and she just sobs for like 3 days because she's like, I'm a horrible monster now. I feel awful about this. And it's kinda
That's so
interesting.
realistic.
It's going up against, I've never heard of this movie, but it has a very ominous name. Number 39 seed, Torso. Ryan, what do you know about Torso?
Torso is a beloved movie amongst your horror elite. I want to say it's Giallo. It's known as the first slasher movie. And Edgar Wright, I guess the fun fact for this one is Edgar Wright's Don't, I think, was based on this. Edgar Wright did a preview for Grindhouse. Don't go in the kitchen. Don't go downstairs. It was based on Torso. Torso is, just gruesome, awesome, bloody gore.
Ooh.
And what do you think between these two movies should move on, Ryan? Torso or Ganja and Hess?
I am going. Come back to me.
Mike, which do you think should move on? Torso or Ganja and Hess is the 26 seed. Torso
Right.
is the 39 seed.
Ganja and Hess sounds really interesting, but man, how Ryan just described Torso sounds so stupidly up my specific alley. So I have
One
to go
vote
Torso.
for Torso. Ryan?
I think I'm going to go Ganja and Hess.
Yeah, I'm going to also go Ganja and Hess. I don't know if in totality it's better, but at moments there's just peaks of brilliance in it.
But Mike, we can't add any movies.
Mhm.
We can't add any more like booty shows. But if you want to do a bonus for like a Monday, I'll watch Torso with you.
Hell yeah.
Our number 10 seed, Mike, have you ever heard of the animated movie Belladonna of Sadness?
No, it sounds like a real drag.
It is kind of a drag. Ryan, do you know that much about this?
Yeah, I have. I've seen a lot of clips, and I'm going to be honest. I did not know about this movie until me and the board started working on the bracket. I could not believe how highly seeded it was. This is a 10 seed that I had never heard of, and that's not just surprising to me. It's upsetting to me. You know how like movie fans are. Like, they're not so much curious as to what they don't know, instead of like upset that they didn't know something. And the more I looked into it, the more I found the backstory of the movie, which it was very controversial, bankrupted its studio, sort of started the delivery system of anime to America. More interesting than the actual movie, which was artistic.
The movie is centered heavily on sexual violence, and a woman like gets powers based on being the victim of sexual violence. That kind of like makes a deal with the devil. And every time she utilizes her powers, the movie goes absolutely nuts. Like, I don't know what her powers are, reality distorting, like the Scarlet Witch, or mentally incapacitating or something like that. But every time she uses her powers, the movie just goes crazy for like 15 minutes. And if you are high on drugs, I could see that being interesting. But it can also be a little slow. But again, there's these moments of genius. The mix of it's animated, but it's more like illustrated. It's like there's these huge drawings that the camera very slowly pans over. There's a lot of upsetting imagery. But again, there's like something there. The combination of the music and the art style, it's very sure of itself, and it's achieving most of its aims. So I found it very compelling. It's going up against a number 55 seed that might be pretty low. It's Five Fingers of Death, Ryan, or is it both of the movies, Five Fingers of Death, and then another name?
Yeah, that's another thing that we didn't talk in the intro of the last episode is that one of the reasons why this year was so hard to research like release dates and if this is 73 or not is because every movie had 2 titles minimum. And so this is called Five Fingers of Death or King Boxer. It's hard to pick which of the 2 titles is cooler.
They're both boss.
King Boxer, like Five Fingers of Death is obviously awesome, but
yes.
to tell someone that you're King Boxer,
yes,
that's a fucking baller move.
Definitely.
And this is the movie that set the country on flame. You know, like this does not star Bruce Lee, but this basically said we're ready for Bruce Lee because this exploded in the box office, and now we have kung fu movies. It's called Chopsaki, but I didn't look up to see if that's okay to say.
Yeah,
anymore.
right? Like a little light kind of went off in my head when you said that.
Yeah.
I don't know either, but like certainly the censors came back and the readings were not great.
We can find a different word for this genre, but yeah, this is a big deal movie.
And 55, that just seems low to me. I don't know, especially because we were talking about Quentin Tarantino being so instrumental to like our understanding of this time, and I know this is one of his big movies, right, Ryan?
We looked at a top 11 movies of all time list from Quentin Tarantino earlier this morning, and I think that it's just from this last year. So he's been talking about the Friends of Eddie Coyle or Charlie Varick or whatever for a long time. So maybe it's the list is too new, and so that means that the Five Fingers of Death will rise soon because he really does have that kind of power, the kind of power that I hope the 3 of us have someday. And we have Charlotte's Web just skyrocket up the Letterboxd rankings.
Ryan, which way would you go with this between these 2, Belladonna versus the Five Fingers?
I am so like everything to me is saying Five Fingers of Death from a audience standpoint, from a have to do a show standpoint, from a 1973 standpoint. Belladonna of Sadness is a movie that I will tackle someday, but like it's intimidating and kind of right now, but like I've only read about it, but like there's a lot of controversial shit in it that I don't know if I'm ready to tackle.
Yeah, dude, for sure. Mike, what do you think, Belladonna or Five Fingers?
Five Fingers just sounds more like a movie of the year show, for good or ill.
Yeah, I recommend people check out Belladonna of Sadness if they're into something kind of intense and weird and ethereal and upsetting, and influential, because that's certainly what it was. Number 23 seed, Mike, have you ever heard of, and I don't, Ryan, actually you watched this movie, Ryan. Is it Tuki Buki?
It is.
Okay, Tuki Buki. Mike, have you heard anything about this movie?
No, it's one of the coolest names of a movie ever, and it's a pretty sweet poster.
Ryan, tell us a little bit about it.
Sweet poster, Mike. Can you look up the poster, and then can you also look up Beyonce Jay-Z tour, like 2012, I want to say?
The Bonnie and Clyde tour they did?
This is a movie about 2 people in, I want to say Senegal that fall in love and have high ambition, low effort. And so they go around on this motorcycle and they have a lot of dreams and they have a lot of fantasies. This is a very, it's not surreal, I would say, but there's a lot of stuff going on where you're going to have to like put it together. Artsy fartsy, you could say, but
experimental, Ryan. Once
you get to the end, it's so worth it. It's a lot about like this generation fighting the previous generation. What does that mean to do that? What does it cost to do that? Because there is a cost that you have to pay. Like, we're not going to do things like you, but also were some of the things that you were doing good?
I can't believe it's going up against our number 42 seed, which is The Harder They Come.
This feels racist, Greg.
Because but like so much of what you were just saying. Okay, so The Harder They Come is about Jamaica, and I would say that it engages with so many of those themes you were just talking about, Ryan. It shows a Jamaica where everything has been claimed. All the land has been claimed. All the good, the high paying jobs have been claimed. And what is it like to be a young person growing up, trying to come up? And what can you do? There's no jobs for anybody. There's nothing left for anybody. And it's about this guy who has this incredible musical talent, but that's like the way out for almost like everybody around him. And so they're horribly exploited. And so he has like this really famous, he has this popular record, but he doesn't get anything for it really. And then he eventually starts to sort of like turn to crime. And when he does that, then he gets like the Bonnie and Clyde bump. Suddenly everyone wants to play his music. It is so compelling, so interesting. The music is amazing in it. The center of the movie is him performing his number, and it's like so compelling. You see that this guy, played by a real
Jimmy Cliff, who like this movie is like credited. We'll say credited for bringing reggae to America, because Jimmy Cliff is that musician turned actor turned musician in this movie.
He's so compelling. He's so awesome. I know, Ryan, you just said all these things about Tuki Buki, but like, Mike, I feel like you're the guy we're fighting for, and I can't give this movie a higher endorsement. I promise you, it is a show. It is a potential. I don't know if it could win this season because nobody knows about it, but it's such a good movie.
Thinking about, does anybody know about it? Greg, do Jay-Z and Beyonce know about it? Because I did find those pictures of their 2000 tour on the run.
I don't have anything good. I don't have anything to counter that. I'm sure they have seen the movie, and I'm sure that they love it.
Also, did Tuki Buki bring reggae to America?
It did not. Would we have so many white Rastafarian kids in college if it were not for The Harder They Come?
That was like Jimmy Fallon's biggest character on SNL. That's bad. No, I'll vote for The Harder They Come.
I think Tuki Buki is high art, and it's a shame that it's about to lose.
Yeah, because Mike, you say The Harder They Come.
I do say.
Ryan.
Yeah, it's Tuki Buki for sure. And this is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Ryan. I have to.
They both deserve to be moved on. Well,
yeah, like there's no wrong answer here. I mean, I saw The Harder They Come. That's the one that I watched, and it's coming down to me, and we're not going to be disappointed in this. We're not. Yeah. The Harder They Come's moving on. Ugh. Whew. Sometimes the show is less fun than other times.
Now that it's done, that is a true shame, and we have ruined the bracket.
Well, if you had said it's one of the best movies you've ever seen before, I voted, Ryan.
That's
feel really like on you.
Oh, this is a fucking, what is this? What was that movie? Son. Like, I said this a million times, Mike. You already heard it.
Oh, After Sun?
After Sun. This is an After Sun situation.
It's just hard. I haven't seen the other one, and I know how strongly I feel about this one. Also, well, we'll see. Moving on to the next round, or not next round, sorry. Moving on to the next matchup. Mike, it's number 3, Mean Streets. How much do you know about Mean Streets?
I believe this is Scorsese's first movie, at least first real movie. And that's it. And I bet it's about New York and crime, baby.
Early
and I bet
Scorsese.
There's little to no women in it.
I bet there's a dude leaning up against a bar, and the camera goes down the bar, and Rolling Stones are blaring. I bet all of this happens.
Yes. And it's going up against Ryan. Number 62 seed, Summer Wishes, Winter Dreams, is it?
Don't we all, Greg? This is nominated for multiple Oscars against what I think is one of the greatest movies of all time. Now, I know I said that for Tuki Buki, and that meant literally nothing to both of you.
You said it after I voted. I still don't listen when you talk.
But no, Mean Streets is. Let's move on.
Mean Streets feels, I know it's not, I know this is just because I'm a movie dum-dum, but Mean Streets feels like one of the first times someone was like, this is what movies should be like. Like, they should have more energy, and they should be actually filmed out on the streets, and they should, like, basically be music videos for parts. They should, like, there's so much energy and gritty.
You know how you complain because you have no money or no, like, you're just saying, like, I have no talent. Like, he did this all for, like, $30,000, just, like, screaming Martin Scorsese at the world.
This is one of those movies where it feels like they loaded up a van full of people and then just literally went, get out on the street, do the scene, then get back in the van, and then we're going to the next location.
No, Harvey Keitel, put your penis away.
It's so big. I prefer to just have it out so it can breathe. So that sounds like Mean Streets. Moving on.
Yes.
Mike, number 30 is my movie, The Day of the Dolphin.
Oh, shit.
How excited are you to potentially watch a movie about dolphin assassins who can speak?
I love assassins. I love dolphins. I love McNichols. Do I even need to know what it's up against?
Well, Ryan, I will tell you what it's up against. It's up against our number 35 seed, officially the last movie I watched before we started recording.
Oh, really?
Scarecrow.
So when I said a lot of these movies are like Of Mice and Men, did that hit you on this one?
Yes, that was the first thing that I thought of. Two dudes bumming across the country. Gene Hackman, who is a big bruiser. He basically, one of these guys who is looking for a fight constantly, and so he's just always being an asshole, hoping that he'll catch someone. And then he's with Al Pacino.
So wait, is it Curly instead of George?
Yes. And then Al Pacino, who is like the opposite of that, a little funny guy who's always trying to get everyone to laugh to get out of situations. And it's like, let's look at these two worldviews as they hang out together as hobos riding the rails across America.
Damn.
And it's fascinating. It's very, very fascinating.
Is it good more? Can you say more than like the two performances were good? Because I'm sure the actors were good, but like, is it a well-made movie?
Okay, let me put it this way. It's in its 73 context, where it's about how do we interact with the world? Can we give ourselves over to everybody like the nice guy? Or do we need to sometimes wade in with our fists and solve problems that way? Like, how are we saving ourselves? So in that way, I think it does.
That sounds interesting, but are there dolphins that talk, Greg?
There are not dolphins that talk.
I don't know, man. Like, is this movie actually good though too? Besides the surprises of finding out what dolphins are and what dolphins do.
It's interesting. I don't know if it actually gets to good, but it's interesting. I don't know that either one of these movies has like even a puncher's chance, and with Scarecrow, it should have at least a puncher's chance. Am I right? Because it's all about punching. So I don't think it matters a ton which moves on in this matchup, to be perfectly honest. And Mike, with that scintillating intro, would you like to move on?
Day of the Dolphin.
Ryan?
I'm gonna say Scarecrow.
And if I had to pick between the two, I think I would go with Scarecrow, because I just think there's a subtlety, and it's just interesting. And the Day of the Dolphin was cool, and I really liked it, but it has trouble escaping sort of the absurdity of some of its premises. Mike, what do you know about number 14 seed Last Tango in Paris?
I am so excited to hear the answer to this question.
Oh, this is Butterlube, the
Butter.
movie.
Yeah, this is the Butter movie. Yeah.
And
Butter lay a finger off my Butterlube.
The actress didn't know, right, that it was going to
Essentially,
happen.
she was sexually assaulted in this, right? Like repeatedly?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That's a real bummer.
I
that fact has wiped out anything that I should know. Is it Marlon Brando?
Yes. Basically, This is one of the 73 movies that is like, if you're a broken down middle-aged white guy, you're allowed to do anything you want. And it was not only the message of the movie, it was the way the movie was made. And so then those two things get like so linked. Like, Ryan, do you think there's any way to watch this movie now without being just horrified like kind of the entire time?
I don't think so.
You're watching crimes, right? You're like watching crimes.
But that doesn't eliminate it for me from the bracket.
What does anything about it eliminate it for you? Eliminate it from the back?
No, I think it's such a big deal. And I think it's important to talk about the awful things that happened. Like, this is one of those movies where like we all read research on it, and then like we all learn about it, and we watch it, and you watch some like documentary about it, and like you just become more horrified. But that doesn't mean that it doesn't get its own show. That's where I'm at.
I feel like we knew about this bad behavior before we knew about a lot of other bad behavior, and that now reflecting on it, it feels way worse than it used to feel earlier. Does that make sense? Like,
sure,
we always knew there was something sketchy about the production of this movie.
Oh, well, talk to your mom or dad about like how the directors that they grew up with or the actors are like capable of horrible shit, and they're like, well, like their entire answer is, well, and like we're taking that much more seriously now,
right?
And so like this is way harder for us to watch. But
okay, but what? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
I was just gonna say again, the bigness of this movie is big.
Yeah, and if we were to do a show about it, it wouldn't be because we're like, we're totally down with everything that happens in this movie, because we take all our movies to task for the ways in which they...
I don't even think that, like, if you're a listener or if you're just seeing that we released this show for the first... Like, you've never seen a show of ours before. If we're doing Last Tango in Paris, you already know. We're not saying, fuck yeah, this movie. Everything you did was right. Hell yeah.
But what about, Ryan, if it's going up against a superior movie in our number 51 seed, Charlie Varick?
Superior is maybe, but this does star Walter Matthau.
Yes, dude.
Not being funny.
As Mr. Wilson?
No.
Despite that face.
Being super cool. The funniest part about this movie, Ryan, is that it starts off and he's an old face, but because he's Walter Matthau, I didn't realize that until he like takes it off, and it's like very dramatic when he like goes back to just being a 50-year-old man instead of like a 65-year-old man.
1973 was like, hey, George Segal, Walter Matthau, Elliot Gould, come here. I'm going to make you a star.
Guys
I'm
are all
going to
so
make
cool.
you a star.
Again, small time, gritty, compelling, very fast moving, a lot of different parts at the same time. They go to steal money from a bank, and when they check to see how much they have, they've got $750,000, and they were expecting to have like $30,000. And Charlie Varick is like, it's never good when you suddenly have more money than you expected to from a job.
Is this Office Space?
And then it basically, yeah, if the thing that they stole money from was the mafia, because that's the problem, is they stole money from a bank that was holding mafia money. And so the cops give up after like 2 minutes. They're like, dang. They're like the GTA cops. They drove into a bush, whatever. But the mafia is like, no, we're not going to give up on this. It's very cool, very interesting, and you'll rarely meet anybody who's heard of it versus Last Tango in Paris, which is one of the most notable movies of all time. Mike, which do you think should move on?
Probably one of the most notable movies of all time.
Ryan, do you agree with that?
I do.
Yeah, Charlie Varick's very good, everybody. You should probably check it out, but we're going to teach the controversy on this podcast. Speaking of teach the controversy, what a wonderful transition. Mike, do you know anything about our number 19 seed, High Plains Drifter?
I do not.
Ryan, do you know anything about our number 19 seed, High Plains Drifter?
So it's just a classic Western with Clint Eastwood as a cowboy, right? Which is why we go to the movies, is to see Clint Eastwood as a cowboy. Just be like, shoot 'em up, bang, bang, bad guys go.
I'm loving it so far. What could go wrong, Ryan?
Oh, also in the first 10 minutes, I raped a woman.
Oops. This is a movie about a small town that needs the help of a wandering cowboy. And he comes into town, and they basically say, we need your help fighting off this gang, so we'll let you do whatever you want. And one of the things he does is he rapes 2 different women in the town. He rapes one woman 10 minutes into the movie, and then there's another woman in town who constantly hates him because he did that. And near the end of the movie, he rapes her as well. And I think the point of the movie is that this town gives itself over to basically the devil. Like, hey, the devil, will you protect us? And when I say that, then you're like, oh, then the rapes are probably supposed to be bad in the movie. I don't know, dude. I really don't know, like, how you're supposed to feel about the way.
You know what you sound like right now? You sound like somebody talking about Magnum Force. Somebody who, or a movie that did not move on, but like, was Clint Eastwood being like, man, this country has, like, this audience has to ask some weird questions about themselves. And maybe just not asking them as obviously as you should have.
Not until Unforgiven. Where
Right.
people will be like, oh.
The point very much in the movie seems to be that he literally makes the town hell. He paints it red and he renames it hell. And so to save it, he completely destroys it. But the movie never digests its sexual violence, and it's just other characters are like, they joke about it, and I know that nobody in the town is supposed to be good, and he's not supposed to be good either. But you come out of the movie and you feel like, I don't know, maybe nothing's good. Like, the worldview is so nihilistic in it that
I mean, this is still 20 years after The Searchers, which was like, hey, you know your cowboy heroes? They were fucking the worst people that you have ever met in your entire life. And Mike is right. This is 20 years before Unforgiven, where he was trying to do the same thing. I don't know if this is a misfire or if this is trying to, like, if this is a certain kind of exploitation. Like, we have blaxploitation and copsploitation and drug exploitation, and then also good guy exploitation. Like, let's look at these people and, like, isn't it just fun to have good guys kill people? without really reflecting on what that means.
I do feel like the morality of the movie says that what he's doing is wrong, but fuck, isn't it fun? And don't you wish you could? And it's very uncomfortable. And it is going up against Four Nights of a Dreamer. Is that what it is?
Now, when did we talk about Cries and Whispers? Was that the last episode?
That was last episode, I believe.
All right. So last episode, I informed Mike that like a decade ago, he and I talked about a Bergman movie that bowled him over. Mike and I also have gone through a Robert Bresson marathon where every movie bowled him over. Now, this is a Robert Bresson movie that is not beloved. It's not in the canon. It's not well loved. I would love to do everything we can to get the masters on this bracket, but I just think that against High Plains Drifter, I don't know. Like, that's such a 73 movie.
And again, putting it on the show is not an endorsement of it. I mean, I would kind of like to talk about what it's doing. I mean, it is because you know what? I'll say this. This is maybe telling on myself, but it's a kind of cool movie otherwise. Like, it really makes you feel gross because you come out of it and you're like, well, some parts of that were neat, and it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like,
it's the kind of movie that like. It's the kind of movie that made people have to say to Quentin Tarantino, like, hey, bud, I'm going to pull you aside and say, like, this scene, the way that you wrote it, change it, please. Because what you're doing is, like, gross and hurtful to women. And he still did some of that shit. But Four Nights of a Dreamer, despite the fact being directed by this director, is not a memorable or, like, remembered movie.
So what do you say, Mike?
I'll go with the High Plains Drifter.
Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wait till next round, everybody. Wait till next round. Our next matchup is number 6, American Graffiti. Mike, what do you know about number 6, American Graffiti?
I went through a period where I loved movies that had no plot and were just about high schoolers
hangout
in
movies.
Their specific time period hanging out for an evening, to the point that I started to write one all about the early 2000s about a lot of scenester kids, and it was awful. And American Graffiti is partially to blame for that. I loved this movie and have not seen it since high school.
Hey, Movie of the Year audiences, if you want me, Greg, and Mike to do a read-through of Mike's script that he wrote, please write in and let us know. We could turn that into an episode.
Ryan, when's the last time you saw American Graffiti?
It's been a while, but like I think that it's one of those things where it's been a while, but I had seen it so many times before it's been a while that like I feel like I know it pretty well.
I had seen it once a long time ago, and I watched it as part of my rewatch because I had said that I had seen it, and then I felt like, okay, search your memory, Greg. Do you have anything on this movie still? This is probably the hackiest thing I can say, Ryan, but did Star Wars cost us one of our like great storytellers and great directors?
I don't think so. I think that once Star Wars happened and he started talking more, I think that everything that's good he did was an accident, and everything that bad he's done was like definitely what God intended. I think. That's what I think. And we can talk about THX 1138. Like, is that a well-made movie?
I've never even seen it, to be honest.
It's boring.
Ryan, it's going again. So it's funny how many of the sci-fi movies from this time are just like, make it boring as shit, dude, because that'll make it cheaper.
Oh, wait, did I impress you with my premise? I'm not going to do shit in the movie.
Yeah,
then.
you're already sitting in the theater,
You
idiot.
do the rest.
I'm going to turn the camera on and just leave it there.
Dude, if we do Westworld, if we really do a show about Westworld, there's so much of that. Look at this is what this hallway looks like. It's going up against Ryan, number 59. I've never heard of this, The Paper Chase.
Okay, so The Paper Chase I thought would be so much higher rated or seated. It's about John Houseman is this professor. He was nominated for an Oscar. He's like, well, I think that all of your work is terrible and I hate it all. But what I'm really trying to do is make you a better student in the long run. And then the guy becomes a better student, and then they hug. And that's the movie, folks.
Like Finding Forrester?
That's not what teaching is. What teaching is being nice to someone until they cheat on their final exam. Come on.
Yeah.
Mike, which of those two do you think should move on? American Graffiti, our number 6 seed, or The Paper Chase, number 59 seed?
Yeah, American Graffiti for me, Greg.
Ryan?
Yes.
I almost threw right back to you, Mike. Mike?
Mike?
So American Graffiti.
Paper Chase this time.
What is this, Florida? Our next one, Mike, our number 27 seed. I get the sense this is maybe a horror, so maybe you've heard of it, know something about it. The Crazies.
Oh, fuck yes. So this is Romero being like, I don't want to make a movie about zombies. Instead, these people go crazy and can't talk, and start killing non-crazies with weapons. And I also love the Timothy Olyphant starring remake from the early 2000s.
Whoa. I had no idea that even existed. Versus
So wait,
Ryan.
the first one, The Crazy, stars Timothy Bottom. No, that's a different Timothy Bottom, and then Timothy Olyphant is in the remake, who has an incredible bottom.
Yes. But I don't think there's a Timothy Bottom in the original Crazy.
That's probably a different 1973 movie I'm thinking of. But I love the title. The title is so good. Like,
yeah, it's dope.
Who's outside of my window? Oh, it's the Crazies.
It's the Crazies.
The tagline, why are the good people dying?
Ah.
Undeniably interesting.
I do think it makes a solid point, which is that, like, and maybe it's the first time that it was made, but like, zombies are not that scary. People are scary, especially if they go like blah a bunch.
They're the real Walking Dead. Yeah, I'm ready, Greg.
It's up against number 38, Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance.
All right, so I don't know where we're at with this movie, but this is the first of 6 movies, and I'm going to assume like the first of 42 manga books.
Mangas, yeah.
About this guy who is named the Mandalorian and his little baby called Baby Yoda, and they are traveling the world. And again, first out of 6.
He's like the big boss man's not assassin. He's the big boss man's executioner. But one day he gets betrayed, and then he gets set against the shogunate, like the lead, like everybody else basically. And he says to his son, his wife has already been fridged, and then he says to his son, hey, I know you can't understand what I'm saying right now, but you have like my blood in you, so you can either come with me and we can fight together on the road to hell, or if you don't want to do that, I understand, and I'll just kill you right now. And the baby chooses the sword, and so he and the baby go off on adventures, and he does like
dope.
He does not keep the baby safe. Like, he uses the baby as part of all the fighting. Like, the baby is right in the thick of things.
Is this what Wolverine and Jubilee were based on as well?
Dude, it's so
Honestly,
amazing,
like,
though.
You know how like there's certain things, certain IP, certain properties that become bigger than their thing. You know, like we use the butterfly effect or sliding doors as terms. Groundhog Day. This is Groundhog Day movie. Lone Wolf and Cub is its own genre of like, I am the mentor and the mentee, and we're going along. This thing is far surpassed. More people know about this trope than have actually watched it.
And I have to say,
most I know about it is Bob and Louise watch the Bob's Burgers version of this all the time.
Oh, that's right.
That's why I know about this existing at all.
it's so amazing. I watched it just the other day, and it was like so good. I know it has all this stuff of like it's part of a series and it's based on a manga, and so like there's all these things that make us think like, you know, and it like has a legacy of it, like what type of story it is. But on through all of that, it's a well shot, interesting, cool movie with a lot of great action sequences and a lot of questionable morality. Mike, what should move on? The Crazies or this crazy guy and his crazy kid?
Lone Wolf and Cub sounds awesome. I cannot legally vote against Romero ever. My vote's for the Crazies.
Ryan?
Crazies.
Moving on, The Crazies. Lone Wolf and Cub, hit the road. Up next, number 11, The Black and White, Ryan O'Neal, Paper Moon.
Barry Lyndon.
Barry Lyndon, who loves to live in London. Paper Moon, Mike, what do you know about it?
I know it's Barry Lyndon, Ryan O'Neal. I know it's Black and White, and I know it's in 1973. And I know there's more than one O'Neal in this movie.
Tatum O'Neal is also in it. Is that his real daughter, Ryan?
That's his real-ass daughter. They had a rough relationship. I believe, if I'm thinking about the right people, she woke up to him having sex with her best friend while they were having a sleepover.
Holy shit.
Yeah, crazy Hollywood stories with that family. I think he was married to Farrah Fawcett, but that's not Tatum's mom, I believe. Again, talking out my ass here.
So they kind of used his weird relationship with his daughter as like part of this movie.
Right. And like she would at 9 drive him home from parties where he was coked out of his mind.
This is so weird. This is the shit that happens in the movie. They just made a movie based on their real fucked up relationship.
And Tatum O'Neal is the girl in Bad News Bears, right?
That is correct.
Why I know her? Okay.
Yes.
And she's amazing in this. But at the whole time, and now I know this has been confirmed, but like the whole time you're just like, yeah, this little girl's amazing, but I don't know. She should get out of here. She shouldn't be around all these people.
I also think that there's a Peter Bogdanovich thing going on where like he's obsessed with the Hollywood of now, like the tabloidiness of now, but also the Hollywood of yesteryear. He directed The Last Picture Show with Timothy Bottoms. He was actually in that movie. Timmy Butts is what we call him. So yeah, I want to talk about all of that stuff, and
It's
I don't
going up
care
against-
what it's going up against, Greg.
It's going up against number 54, The Baby.
All right, here we go. The poster, please look it up. It's a crib with giant man legs sticking out of the
Oh, yeah.
crib.
I remember this one.
A social worker still reeling from the loss of her architect husband, important to note, he was an architect, investigates the eccentric, psychedelic Wadsworth family, consisting of a mother, 2 daughters, and an adult son with the mental capacity of an infant.
Okay, I get it.
Like he's a
and
baby.
this is the the beginning of the Boss Baby cinematic universe.
Yes, this is when it all started. So don't fucking watch. Don't come to me and say, like, I didn't understand Boss Baby 2 until you have seen The Baby, because of course you didn't get it.
He's
have to
not
see
supposed
The
to be
Baby.
a boss yet.
That Will Ferrell sketch where he comes out with a baby with the full job and friends already.
What do you think should move on? This feels pretty hard, like it's the Paper Moon, right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, baby. Our
sorry.
last matchup of this round, gentlemen, the Hourglass Sanatorium, number 22. Mike, I get the feeling this might be a horror movie. Do you know anything about it?
It sounds like a horror movie. I know nothing about it except it has my next tattoo as its poster. It's this giant eye that turns into like a skull mouth underneath
yeah.
it. It's fucking sick. But no, I know nothing about
Pretty dope.
this.
Ryan, do you know anything worthwhile about this?
Polish movie, surrealist. Like, guy walks into a sanatorium where his dad is, and everything is surreal. Like, what's that show, Legion?
Oh shit, really? It's like that? Okay.
Like, we go into a sanatorium, and now everything is crazy. Am I crazy?
Are there Hulk hands?
Am I the crazies? Am I all of the crazies?
Better grab an axe handle and figure it out. And it's going up against our number 43 seed, The Big Boss. Not The Big Boss Baby, just The Big Boss.
Are we sure?
Ryan, do you know anything about The Big Boss?
Hold on, let me type. Is the Big Boss Baby?
Part
This
of the
is
Boss Baby cinematic universe.
this is the movie that brought. I know that Enter the Dragon is like a far superior movie. I'm sure, like better made. But this is the movie that brought Kung Fu, Chop Socky, if we're still allowed to say that, and Bruce Lee to the masses. This movie made a fuck ton of money, and like Torso is the first slasher movie. This is the movie that gave us the Kung Fu genre that would really last for like 15 years after this.
Do you think it should move on versus the Hourglass Sanatorium?
There'd be no Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings without the Big Boss. And yes, I do think it should. I'm totally fine with having 2 Bruce Lees competing in the second round.
Yeah, why not? What do you think, Mike?
I like that Ryan just has to dumb it down for me and some of our listeners. Be like, okay, so there would be no Legion with the without the Hourglass Sanatorium.
All right, so
There'd be
what
no
is this like
Shang-Chi.
compared to Marvel?
Okay, I'll talk to the fucking baby, but not the baby from 1973. Yeah, it's the Boss Baby for me.
All right, very good. So the Boss Baby will be moving on. The Big Baby. When we come back after this short break, we are going to make the most brutal of cuts and get down to just 16 fine movies. We are ready to start round number 2. We have number 1 seed, The Exorcist, versus number 33 seed, Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid.
This is fucking Greg, you're the host?
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If
this is your fault.
you're just tuning in right now, if you're that kind of podcast listener that skipped part 1 and also the first half of part 2,
You know what? I like your crazy style. Let's hang out.
You got something to teach us.
this is when shit gets crazy, and this is unfair. This is like, I think that maybe there will be talk in the future of 32 episodes per season based on just this battle alone.
1 year to 1 year. Why isn't all of 2023? I guess at this point, half of 2023 and half of 2024 is all 1973.
Well, if you're named 1973, you should have 73 movies in your season.
That
It's
makes too much
just
sense.
as simple as
Shit,
that.
we're gonna have to do 2,000 movies.
I think to the outsider, this would seem like a slam dunk. I promise you that it's not, especially when we're talking about like 73, especially when we're maybe going to have a show about High Plains Drifter. It would be amazing if we could have a show about Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. But Exorcist is bigger than 1973.
They carted people out of the theaters, Greg.
Get the fuck out of here, Pat Garrett.
And that had to be true, right? There's no way that was just done for...
And they've never said that about any other movie. I didn't this year see a movie that I heard people were vomiting and had to leave the theater and watched it and went,
I saw a trailer where they were carting gentle minions out of the theater after watching The Rise of
Sweet
Gru.
gentle minions. So we all agree, Exorcist moving on.
yes.
And that people should see Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid because it's like a fascinating
Just watch
movie.
Young Guns. Or
Greg
Young Guns
has-
too.
Or Mike has forced a torso bonus episode. I'm going to force a Tuki Buki episode. Greg, do you want to force a Pat Garrett?
I am gonna force one. I just want to, and this might be it, but I'm gonna hold that in reserve. But that would probably be right now my choice. It's so cool and
Greg,
interesting and weird.
Can I ask before you force one, can you at least use a pat of butter?
Oh my god,
That's not
Mike,
cool. Mike,
that's not a
that's
good
so
joke.
fucking cool.
I haven't seen the movie yet, so I don't know how bad that might be.
Our next matchup is number 49 seed, pretty low seed, Tout Va Bien versus number 17, De Palma's Sisters.
Did we say that whatever wins these battles, this is what's crazy about the 16 episodes?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh
It-
yeah.
It's just an episode now.
Yeah, so like The Exorcist, that is a show, definitely. This is something I had to come to terms with when I picked the season, but like Exorcist is a show. It is an episode. I will be watching this movie.
Greg, I promise you, the week we do The Exorcist, I will leave my ringer off Do Not Disturb, and you can call me at any point if you need to get talked back to sleep.
Oh man, if you are afraid of the devil and you make a cell phone call, that's on you, fool. You are 100% going to get connected right to the devil.
And you're going to call that your douchiest friend who goes, Greg.
Mike, do you ever hear everything Greg says as the bass voice from Boyz II Men? It's like, girl,
Girl.
if you ever make a phone call,
if
the
you
devil-
watch, if you're scared of the devil and you make a phone call, you might be a redneck, girl.
I feel totally lost with this one, Ryan. I didn't happen to watch either of these, so my watching didn't do anything for me in this round. And I think, Mike, are you kind of in the same?
What is the low seated one? Was a phrase I didn't even know because what
All
is
right.
it?
Va Bien.
So,
What is this?
so the real quick thing that listeners already know is that one is let's move the camera around 9 squares that are apartments, and we're going to prove that film is stupid and weird, but awesome, but gross. And Sisters is the Brian De Palma, Margot Kidder slasher. I think that for multiple reasons, it has to be Sisters. I cannot wait for that episode. The Godard one would be fine, but like no one talks about this movie anymore.
Yeah.
Sisters has like a Criterion release. It's been rethought and reestablished as like a classic so many times. There's a moment in this movie that I am tittering. I can't wait for you guys to see. Like there's so many awesome film things. The ending is a segment on its own. It just has to be Sisters.
And
All right.
De Palma has such a reputation, and I dislike what I've seen so much that I want to keep smashing my head against him until I get it.
Yeah, and then after you watch this, you'll be like, I should revisit Snake Eyes with Nicolas Cage because I bet that's a wonderful movie.
That's the one I like, Ryan. Fuck Scarface.
Our next matchup, number 8 seed The Sting versus number 40 seed The Last of Sheila. The Last of Sheila was that like Ryan Johnson what's his detective
yeah,
movies?
that's
Knives
my vote.
Out.
Knives Out style.
I vote for Knives Out 1973 edition.
Bunch of old friends get together and hijinks ensue versus The Sting. Huge movie. Probably better than The Last of Sheila and also more important. And I don't know. Are we really going to think about putting The Last of Sheila through?
I'm not. I like as much shit as I talked in the last episode about The Sting. Like it's such a American classic. Like if the only reason to do it is to take it down a peg, which I'm not wanting to do, but if that's the reason, then that's fine. The Last of Sheila, who gives a shit?
It's good. It's fun. But like, I don't know. It doesn't raise to the level of The Sting in my mind. What do you think, Mike? Do you want to make any sort of like plea for The Last of Sheila?
No plea. I said I vote for it. I love Ryan Johnson. I love whodunits and howdunnits. That was my vote, but that's fine. I understand you guys' arguments for The Sting, a movie I've actually heard of.
What about Ryan's Johnson?
It's my favorite Johnson. Wink.
Oh, that's so sweet. Even above your own?
Yeah, mine is nothing to write home about.
That, you know what? You've got a beautiful body, Mike, and you should love it. That's all I'm going to say on that. So the Sting is moving on. Also a wonderful professional wrestler you may have heard of. Our next matchup is number 9, the cop money-taking Serpico versus number 24, sort of gritty, small-time crooks, the friends of Eddie Coyle.
Greg, you watched Serpico recently, right?
I did. I watched both of these in the last week.
And I know we're going to deal with this character very soon, but did you notice that one of his mini costumes was straight up a green hat with a feather and green clothes? He just dressed like Robin Hood as one of his crazy costumes.
He is a loud dresser. I'm not totally. We'll get into what the deal with Serpico is when we watch Serpico. But one thing he is a flamboyant, fun dresser.
I don't like that. I don't like when people dress brightly and loudly.
He's
garish.
His whole thing
What are you
is
doing? Get a personality.
He wants to become a detective so bad just so that he could always be in plain clothes. But he doesn't wear anything that's like plain clothes in the entire movie. It just gets more and more over the top. I love it.
No offense, Greg. I would love that if you picked, instead of Pat Garrett, if you picked Eddie Coyle for your bonus, that would be awesome. But Serpico is Max Fisher did not do a play based on the friends of Eddie Coyle.
Yeah. Again, so sometimes, like, it's not always the bigger movie's going to win, but sometimes when it's like a movie that is bigger than the year versus a movie that you heard of because you did some research on the year, like, it just seems tough to try to force through the friends of Eddie Coyle against a movie like Serpico. All right, our number 4 seed, and Ryan predicted potential winner, Don't Look Now, the weird, haunted, precog, creepy Venice, Donald Sutherland movie, versus number 36, a movie that Ryan has called the most boring movie ever made, The Way We Were.
And that is Barbara Streisand and Robert Redford being
Yes.
no rom-com, not even rom-com.
Let's fall in
wrong.
love, but never tell jokes. That's what
that's
the
not
pitch is
love.
for the movie. Yeah.
Yeah, you're talking to 3 guys whose relationship is based entirely on the fact that they and their wives can just like talk and laugh for hours and hours and hours.
Would you say that all
Rom
three of
goes
our
with
wives,
calm.
all 3 of our wives think we're funnier than they think we're sexy or are in love with us?
Yes.
Yeah.
When we first met, for sure.
And now I'm saying to you, Mike, right now, for sure, your wife thinks that you're funnier more than she thinks.
I was
you're
saying
attractive.
she no longer finds me funny or attractive.
Yeah, we don't really have anything for The Way We Were, right?
Let's Don't Look Up.
Kind of a schmaltzy song. Don't Look Now is so good. Oh, and we're going to get to do a show about it. I'm excited. And it's fun if you've ever been to Venice or if you just like Venice, because it's like a tour through the less notable parts of Venice.
Does
this guy
Muscle Beach, Venice? count?
like working out on a Muscle Beach, Mike? Is that what we're doing?
We grew up in Southern California.
Get out of my way. I'm going to say the same thing as you. Our next matchup, this is a tough one. This is a tough one. Our next matchup is number 13, Enter the Dragon, the Bruce Lee. Just this movie, kids, correct me if I'm saying this wrong. This movie's fucking swaggy, dude. It's just swagged out.
Does it have
he is
Riz?
so cool. Yeah, it's rizzed up. It's got the drip. And then it's going up against number 20, Papillon.
See, this
which
is what I'm
probably arguably a better movie, but like
This is what I'm talking about, dude. Like, I honestly thought that we would do shows about all the important movies, and like,
You can't.
maybe Eddie Coyle, I could have predicted wouldn't get its own show, but like, this sucks. Like,
I
know
thought both of these were going to get a show for sure. Yeah.
I know what I'm gonna pick, but like, these both deserve a show. These are both big, huge movies.
One of them is a big, huge movie.
There's a more fun movie, which is Enter the Dragon, but I have to say, I'm thinking about the shows that these movies would engender, and it's not that the Enter the Dragon show would be bad, it's that the Papillon show would be better, including the parts where we're like, why did they do that? Was that just because 73 is a very, very weird time? The decisions, both good and bad, that Papillon makes, I think, is just more interesting. I don't know. I think more to talk about, more to chew on.
I think the cultural footprint of Enter the Dragon is undeniable.
Can you guys believe that we watched all the Game of Thrones and its spinoff, and we saw nobody enter the dragon? Like, at some point, somebody should have fucked the dragon, right?
Yeah.
Well, like,
Theon.
all the Targaryens are dragons, so anytime any Targaryen gets fucked, they're being entered as a dragon,
Interesting.
right? So, yeah, you know. Gotta think about it that way. We do have to decide, though. Unfortunately, I will. Well, I have to go last, actually. So I will say, Mike, make a decision, bud.
Yeah, this is one I think is a huge movie that has a lasting impact on.
And one is
normal
Mike's
people,
grandfather,
not just film nerds. And one is my grandpa, who I didn't even like that much. Enter the Dragon.
I agree. Like when I was a kid, people would say Papillon is like, oh, you got to watch this movie, but those were just dads that watched fucking Tom Hanks movies on Apple Plus or would in their future. It's Enter the Dragon.
73 was like a great time for dad movies because the protagonists are all dad age basically, and none of them are in like amazing shape, but they're all, the world of the movie constructs them as just the coolest person who's ever existed.
And dads are folding laundry thinking like, oh, that gets to sexually assault people. Why can't I?
Like your dads were folding laundry in 73. Dads are walking around yelling
Oh my God.
their wives for laundry not being folded well enough.
In 73, dads were handing shit-covered babies to women saying, well, what do we do with this?
Stop
In
dipping it
73,
in shit.
In 73, your dad was trying to get you to take a sip of beer, not so that you would know what it was like, so that you would just shut up and leave him alone.
Stop teething.
It is a little bit of a shame because that crossover of Steve McQueen and Dustin Hoffman, I just feel like is two eras of Hollywood coming together in sort of an unlikely place, and it really works too. I mean, it's sort of like a buddy cop film. Well, our next matchup is I will now tell everybody the reason for the season is this movie for me. Number 5, The Long Goodbye. This is, when I looked ahead to this season, this is exactly why I was excited about this season. And my favorite movie that I watched in preparation for this season was The Day of the Jackal.
One about cats, the other about cat food.
Exactly. Yeah, you can just make your cat like a little dish with cottage cheese and pineapple while you smoke a cig. Two different men at the center of this movie. One is like rumpled and barely making it through the day. The other is like hyper efficient but kind of a machine. It's a shame we can't do both of these. And in fact, Ryan, I have a feeling that I'm going to...
I feel like we have Greg's bonus episode.
Probably based on these two because... Mike, is there a world where we move The Day of the Jackal on and not The Long Goodbye?
Not a world I will remain living in.
Yeah. This is another movie that Mike and I reviewed on a former podcast, and he remembers this one because he doesn't like Cries and Whispers apparently, but he loves this one.
I don't know what that is. I've never heard of it before this moment right now that you said it. Long Goodbye is one of my favorite movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, and I like you two knuckleheads. I cannot wait to talk about The Long Goodbye about like the destruction of the hero and Altman. Every time an Altman movie comes up, it's just so much fun. Day of the Jackal. Bye-bye.
Maybe. Okay, put a pin in that. Maybe. But yeah, Long Goodbye is moving on for now. Day of the Jackal is going to go to the sideline and keep glancing at me, and I'll keep glancing back. Our next one is, wow, I'm surprised it made it this far. Cries and Whispers, the movie that Mike saw, loved, and then decided to forget completely, versus The Last Detail, the movie that was always like number 2 on my list of movies that I was going to watch next to get ready for this season, and just never quite got there.
This is the Jack Nicholson Navy movie.
I'm sorry, who, Mike? The who movie?
Jack Nicholson.
Can you say his name?
Jack Nicholson.
Thank you.
Sorry. I have to take my hat off to do his voice right. Jack Nicholson, and he's not played by James Caan here.
Right, that is correct.
Played by the man himself.
This fucking sucks. I think Cries and Whispers is probably the best movie, like, wholesale out of all this, and The Last Detail is so good. And so 73.
Yeah, I'm leaning Last Detail. I mean, that to me, the 73-ness of it, the fact that, like, I am acquainted with the poster. I feel like I've seen the poster my entire life.
That's so important.
It makes me want to get in there and watch it, man.
Last Detail sounds awesome, but I think I have to watch this movie. Apparently, I've seen Unloved before.
Yeah, I guess that would be like being reintroduced to some part of yourself.
I mean, Cries and Whispers is not as Bergman-y, as like parody-y as The Seventh Seal, right? Like it's not like Playing Chess with Death and like that clip with like the people in a line on the cliff in profile and like you can see them. Yeah. It's not as, but it is close to that. And The Last Detail is just a fucking good time. The Last Detail is if you ever wanted to go know what it's like to go on vacation with me, Mike, and Greg. Woof. It is like that. Shit. This sucks.
Let's go to you first, Ryan. What do you think it's going to be? Well, Mike already said, right? Mike already said Cries and Whispers.
Yes.
Okay, so Ryan, do you agree with that?
You know what? The 1973 of it all, and the fact that like we don't really know when Cries and Whispers came out. It's like a Swedish movie. I'm gonna go with The Last Detail. Shit.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with The Last Detail as well for that same reason. It's just like so much. It's cleaner. Definitely part of the zeitgeist of '73. We know exactly when it came out. It was popular. I've seen the poster forever.
All right, so I will continue to not know myself thanks to you guys.
No, wait. What was my bonus episode? I'm gonna switch it. Doesn't matter. Let's go.
Let's go, jerks. Number 2 seed, The Holy Mountain versus number 34 seed, Coffee. Is there any way I'm going to get my dream of The Holy Mountain?
Is this your fucking
booted?
perfect dream right here? Like this is what you wanted. This is what you fixed the bracket
Yeah,
to have The
about
Holy
thumbing
Mountain
those
kicked
scales.
out of here.
Honestly, I'm actually kind of equally like Holy Mountain has a lot of stuff that's hard to watch because obviously part of his deal is like I'm going to show you things that are beautiful, but I'm also going to show you things that are grotesque, for that is the world we live in. And so that's part of what I hold against it. But Coffee sounds like you're going to have to like sit me down and be like, Greg, this is some stuff that happens in this movie, and I need you to be okay with it, bud. So I'm kind of afraid of both of these movies.
I think that the Holy Mountain's timelessness, in fact, like the fact that it's weird at any time, whereas Coffee is so 73, that's why I'm leaning towards Coffee.
Yeah,
It does
not
seem
gonna
like the
vote
more
against Pam
73
Grier.
movie.
And Blaxploit, do we have another Blaxploitation? That's in the, at this point, 8 episodes ago, we talked about, would that matter? Yeah, I think that genre needs to be represented.
No. We have our Kung Fu movie and horror-ish, but no.
Bada bing.
You thinking about it, Mike? You thinking about going Coffee?
Oh, I'm Coffee all the way.
I am
Mike is
too.
a Coffee. Ryan, are you a Coffee?
I'm a Coffee.
Well, you know what? I will have a coffee as well, and I can't wait to get these trigger warnings. Number 15 seed. Wow, this is interesting. Again, we don't doctor this in any way. This is just how it happens. It's given to us by the universe. We give it
Sometimes
to you.
two boring sci-fi movies come up against each other.
But number 15, Westworld versus number 18, Soylent Green. This is where I'm wondering if all things are equal, because these are kind of like overhyped future movies that ultimately kind of send you to your phone halfway through them because you're like, man, I think I'll know when they change scenes, and then I'll just look up again.
I'll just defer. If Greg has watched both of these in the last week, I don't fucking care. I'll defer, and Greg can make my pick.
Mike?
I'll agree. This is one of the Crichton collection I haven't owned.
Then I'm going to go with Westworld because of the Crichton factor. I do have to say there's some weird stuff in Soylent Green, as I alluded to last episode or earlier in this episode. But I don't know that there's a ton for us to do with the weirdness. Like, they call women furniture. Isn't that really gross? Yeah, very, very gross. Yeah, I think that's gross. Yeah,
No.
I'm grossed out by the fact that they did that. Yeah, it's not good. No, it's bad. Yeah, it's definitely bad. We're against that. It's like, how much can you say that
You
sucks?
just did it. You
does.
knocked it out. You knocked out that episode for us.
Number 7, Robin Hood versus number 26, Ganja and Hess.
Robin Hood for me, baby.
I don't want to do a show about Robin Hood. I don't give a fuck. Like, come on. Ganja and Hess. We have an opportunity to do an episode about Ganja and Hess. And I'm not trying to like win Greg over. I'm just trying to say that like Mike is a child and Greg, let's be adults.
Yeah, Robin Hood is kind of the same level throughout, and Ganja Hess has these like spikes and then these valleys.
I will say, Greg, before you finish that thought, I will say, and I don't know if this matters to you at all. I legitimately don't. But if we do a show about Robin Hood, it will get like thousands of listeners. And if we do a show about Ganja and Hess, it will get tens of listeners.
Here's the thing I really like about the Robin Hood movie is that it is a classic that a lot of people connect to. And I think that that's important. That part of what we have in movies is that they provide a cultural touchstone. And I think that's what we're doing here, too. And that's something that we're celebrating as much as anything else. So I think I'm going to go with Robin Hood.
I said when we were talking about The Sting, I said I was not going to be like arms folded. I was going to come in open-minded. Not with Robin Hood. Like, fucking this bullshit movie, stupid. It's just bad.
Just
I
watch
like when we
Ganja Has
draw-
that we can talk about that.
I like when we draw a big audience to us just so that we can say we don't like your movie.
Oh, the thing you wanted to hear us rave about? You're fucking dumb.
I think it is going to be an interesting show, though. I think there's potential there.
You know, it's way better than The Fox and the Hound.
It's unfair to Ganja and Hess, who
God.
that would probably be a more interesting week. But I don't know. Like the thing you said, Ryan, it moved me more because are we going to tell people that we did the show in a year where one of their favorite movies came out and then we didn't talk about it, especially when our show goes out onto the internet and we're talking about the internet subculture.
I do have to say, like, we have talked
furries.
multiple times, mostly it's not just furries, though. Like, we talked in the intro of part 1, you know, how much before our time this year was. And yet, every girl that we know is horny for this main character in a way that is different than Elliot Gould or George Segal if we're talking about 1973.
What if they had made Robin Hood instead of a young fox, kind of an old dad bod type?
Like the Badger.
Friar Tuck?
No, there's the Badger. It might be the Sheriff I'm thinking of. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but there's a Badger character.
There is a Badger character.
Undeniable.
So it sounds like Robin Hood moving on.
Yeah.
Sorry, cinema. Our next matchup is number 55 seed, the Five Fingers of Death, or the Boxer King, versus number 42, The Harder They Come. Now, we already have our Kung Fu movie. Am I right about that?
We do have Enter the Dragon, although that's not a little bit more Americanized than probably Five Fingers of Death.
What is The Harder They Come?
It's the Jamaican movie about reggae and about how hard it is to make it in Jamaica.
And can we vote for Tuki Buki right now?
We cannot, no. Nor can we vote for After Sun.
What
Some
about
ships
After
have already
Yang?
sailed.
I
I would just
vote-
like to say I have seen The Harder They Come, and I am advocating for it very highly, especially because I kicked out Tuki Buki, and I'd feel really bad if then it lost. Also, The Harder They Come.
Can we barter right here?
Yeah.
If
barter
you
away.
if you're on the Tuki Buki bonus episode with me and Mike, then I'll vote for The Harder They Come.
Yeah, of course. I'm going to be on that. Or yes, I will agree to these terms.
Okay.
I meant.
And then I'll just watch Five Finger Death Punch live in concert alone.
So The Harder They Come is moving on. Next up, this is, I don't think a hard choice, but just a harsh matchup. Number 3, Mean Streets versus number 35, Scarecrow.
Mean Streets.
Yeah, I
Kick
mean,
rocks.
like, let's say, Greg, you watched both of these movies recently, right?
Yes.
And even if they were equal on the Greg favorite movies of all time, one is so much more important to the history of film, right?
Yes, and they're not equal. I enjoyed Scarecrow, but it's like, Scarecrow's like one of these movies that you really enjoy but it just doesn't feel super important. Like, you know, it's just good and it makes you think a little bit. And you're like, oh, these are good performances. And I like Gene Hackman, but it doesn't change you or anything. All right, now we are going to enter the uncomfortable zone, gentlemen. And once we emerge from this uncomfortable zone, we will have an uncomfortable movie on our hands, and there's just nothing we can do about that. Number 14, Last Tango in Paris versus number 19, High Plains Drifter.
This feels like bartering in that, fine, I won't vote for Last Tango, but now you got to watch High Plains Drifter. Like this feels like some sort of trade with the devil.
I think there's one that the world has heard of and is a bigger deal, and it's Last Tango.
I do feel like I'm ready to reckon with the history of it and talk about that while watching the movie, treating it as the movie as its own separate thing, but also entwined with its history. Both of these movies deserve episodes. I'm not trying to avoid both of these. I think that they both should be in the 16.
Yeah, because of those tough conversations.
Ryan's
I'm
trying
not
to kick out Robin Hood and slip in High Plains Drifter in its place right now.
I am. Rob from the Poor.
So that sounds like Last Tango in Paris for both of you. So that's the one that's moving on.
Fucking
All right.
crazy.
That'll be a fun week. Up next, it is number 6, American Graffiti versus number 27, The Crazies. Mike, is there anything you want to say to The Crazies before we boot them out of here?
I said I legally can't vote against George Romero, but then I said American Graffiti made me write a shitty screenplay when I was in high school. So,
Mike, if you flip the titles of these movies, does it still work?
it really does, Ryan, because I don't know if you looked at these clowns in Washington.
These teens on the street doing drag races, those are the crazies.
I vote for the crazies.
Ryan.
American Graffiti.
It's got to be American Graffiti. You're one of the crazies, Mike. And then I think this is our last choice here, and I want us all to really think about it. Sometimes these last cuts can be the toughest. Number 11, Paper Moon versus number 43, The Big Boss. And I was, of course, being facetious.
The Big Boss is credited for giving America this kung fu craze, right? That we all liked. The kung flu. I'll just leave it there. But Paper Moon, and Paper Moon's not set in 1973, so it's not about 1973. But like, come on, like, right? We already have Enter the Dragon.
Yeah, I think we filled our brief on that, right? We filled our briefs. We wanted to make sure that we had like a selection of what 73 really felt like, but this would be akin to leaving off The Sting or American Graffiti, like, or Robin Hood, let's
Or
say.
the
Like,
crazies.
people would approach you, and when they found out you were doing a show about 73, they'd be like, "Oh, I can't wait to hear the Paper Moon episode." And if you said to them, "Yeah, we don't have one because we did The Big Boss,"
They would sock you in the nose.
they would. And you'd be like, "I feel
Then
like
they're
I'm
the
in
big
movie."
boss.
Well, there you have it. I'm going to read you the movies that will make up this season, but we have done it. We have seeded the bracket. These are the 16 movies that will make up the 1973 season of Movie of the Year, along with the 3 bonus episodes.
At least
Because
3.
we have a very hard time saying no. So it is The Exorcist, Sisters, The Sting, Serpico, Don't Look Now, Enter the Dragon, The Long Goodbye, The Last Detail, Coffee, Westworld, Robin Hood, The Harder They Come, Mean Streets, Last Tango in Paris, American Graffiti, and Paper Moon.
This is bananas.
Whatever.
I just said the name of the Movie of the Year from 1973. We just don't know which one it was.
Whatever I said in the beginning of the last episode, where I was like, "Well, 1973, I don't know, kind of dumb." I was wrong.
Yeah, you're really dumb.
I am sorry. These are like, we are about to get a fucking education.
We're going to learn about film. We're going to learn about cinema. And mostly, we're going to learn about each other.
Why is that always mostly? Couldn't one time it be like number 1, learn about film, number 2, learn about each other?
So sick of learning about you guys.
Seriously, I know so much.
And it sounds like what our potential bonus episodes are Tuki Buki. Mike, what was yours?
I don't remember, so the crazies probably.
Torso.
Torso.
Oh, Torso.
But I might switch mine to Cries and Whispers, which would then switch Mike's to Tuki Buki. Mike, if you don't mind, I'm going to
Switch
take over
Greg's to the
yours.
crazies.
Well, let's not worry about the bonus episodes now because they're not going to win the Movie of the Year anyway. Although they could win potentially our Moody's, and some people say that those are the real prizes. Usually the losers say that.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it. We have begun the 1973 season. Gentlemen, are you excited? I find myself exceptionally excited.
I want to stop talking to you so I can go start watching movies.
Do you want to know
All right.
what our first movie is?
Yes, what is our next episode going to be, Ryan?
It's motherfucking Westworld, guys.
Oh my gosh, we're starting with Westworld, probably the worst movie.
I changed my excitement level.
If you said right now, if the paparazzi came up and said, "Oh, you guys just picked 16 movies, name all of them," we all would have named 15 and then not remembered Westworld.
Westworld, the movie that we'll forget forever. But you know what's going to be fun, guys? We're going to get to all talk about the fact that James Brolin is obviously Christian Bale's real dad.
And
There is no doubt. Your brain just tells you that is the fact when you look at him smile.
I did deliver some news to you guys in the text feed that he is his dad, but he left him at a church.
He's the one who.
Oh, because he's Christian Bale.
Christian Bale.
He did a Christian Bale,
He
guys.
did a Christian Bale.
We could do this in the text feed, but you guys refused to, so we're doing it live on the podcast.
You will respond to my puns, you motherfuckers.
Well, friends, so has begun the 1973 season of Movie of the Year. And there's only one thing left to do, and that's to keep watching them movies.